Well, we find out now that the president and the IRS was targeting at the same time that they were denying that they were leading an attack on me when I was over at Fox. And I told the American people, and no one cared in the press. There were five boycotts orchestrated by this White House to discredit, to smear, and to force advertisers to come off of the air. It had nothing to do with what I said. It had everything to do with fear and intimidation. Because I stood against the White House. And at the same time they're denying that and saying it's a conspiracy, they were targeting the 9/12 Project. Anything with Patriot in the name. A Tea Party. Anything with Tea Party in the name. What I like are some of the classics that America should not forget. They were also targeting anyone who taught the Constitution. And I love this one. Anybody who said that America can be better. Could you give me the exact quote on that one, Stu? Because I read that and I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me.
I don't have it in front of me. I think it's to make America a better place.
They were targeting any group that said America can be a better place. That's incredible. And they were using the force of the IRS. And do not believe that they were only going in Cincinnati. They were targeting in Ohio. They were targeting in Florida. They were targeting in New Mexico. Any of these sound familiar during the election? They started this in 2011. We reported it on The Blaze on 2011. We were called conspiracy theorists because of it. Today I want to start with a definition of tyranny, because America needs a lesson on what tyranny is. Tyranny is when there is an absolute ruler. Tyranny is a system that forces its will on others, a system or an agency that has the power to force its will. So you know, America, if you don't pay attention to what they did with the IRS and Benghazi, next year your health care goes to the IRS. Next year, this administration's universal health care employs the IRS, so now you have to turn over all your medical records, all of your medical information to the IRS. If you don't think that they won't use that to source and to sort people and to intimidate and to take away your guns, quite honestly, why? If you don't believe, I just want to know why. What have they done that has proven them trustworthy? And I don't say this just about the President of the United States. I say this about the Republicans as well. I don't know if you saw this, but in the amnesty bill that Marco Rubio is all for, in the amnesty bill that Jeff Flake is for, there was a hidden piece in there about biometric codes. So now everyone will have biometric information given to the government. So in other words, they map your face. It's a universal ID card without being a card. Everyone is digitally stored. They're already doing it. I can tell you that right now. They're already doing it. They're already storing all of your information. May I ask this question? And we're going to cover all of these things on today's show. But why are we having investigations on what happened into Benghazi? The government has already admitted. Do you have the audio of this by any chance, Pat? Ready? The government has already admitted that they store and record all telephone calls, all electronic communications. So all text messages, all emails, and all telephone calls are digitally stored. Any kind of electronic communication is now recorded and stored. So why is it the government needs to have an investigation? Why do they have to have an investigation on this? All they have to do is produce the tapes. We'll know exactly not only what everybody said and when they said it, but we'll also know exactly what location they were in. They'll all have geo-tracking. If the government has built this apparatus to record everyone's conversation, this is their words, not mine. Everyone's conversation, all your personal telephone calls are recorded now. All electronic communication is recorded. If they're doing that for our safety, right? They're doing that so no harm could come to the United States of America. Well, if we have people in the White House and in Congress and in the Pentagon and in the State Department, there's no need for an investigation. You release the tapes. And if you won't release the tapes, if you won't go back and look at all of those tapes, all of those phone conversations, all of the geo-tracking, everything that happened, if you won't do that, well, then you're not building the surveillance state for our protection. You're building the surveillance state for your protection. We have to call a spade a spade. What happened with the IRS was an inquisition. I'm going to give you in a few minutes, I'm going to give you the questions that were asked just of the 9/12 groups. But the reason why I say we need to start calling it an inquisition is because it targeted Jews. The Inquisition targeted Jews. If you were the wrong religion, if you were Jewish and you were the wrong religion, submit. The IRS was not only targeting those who taught the Constitution, those who thought America could be a better place. The 9/12 Project, which is really strange because that one is based solely on principles and values that have nothing to do with anything, any particular party. It doesn't have Patriot in its name. It doesn't have Tea Party in its name. Why was the 9/12 Project? Because 9/12, all that is that's the day that we were all coming together and trying to be better people and do the right thing. But they also targeted Jewish groups. They were targeting Jewish religious organizations. My Jewish friends in America, all religious people, listen up. The government not only targeted the Tea Party, they not only targeted the 9/12 Project, but they targeted a religion. And they asked, where do you stand on the Jewish question, on the Israeli question, on Israel should exist? When you have a government going in and putting a litmus test together for a religion, you are developing a very frightening state. The media knew about this. The media knew about it in 2011. We produced the documents in 2011. No one did anything except smear me. Is that possibly yet another campaign? Now, that sounds like a pretty crazy thing to say, but as The Blaze has reported, CBS has relatives in the White House. In fact, the guy who is responsible for changing the Benghazi documents, his brother is the president of CBS News, as The Blaze reported. Also, as The Blaze reported, ABC's Ben Sherwood, a guy who is a friend of ours, a guy who I think is an honorable man. Also, he's the president of ABC News. He also has relatives in this administration's White House. Is it ABC or is it NBC that has Claire Shipman, who is, I think she's NBC. Is ABC, she moved over to ABC? So Claire Shipman, also at ABC, she's married to Jay Carney. They're protecting their own, gang. Let me ask you this. Geraldo Rivera came out and said he has sources. He has sources that say that Benghazi was a gun-running operation, that they were running missiles. We've already reported that. But I don't know who Geraldo Rivera's sources are. But I will tell you how the media works. You can't let somebody like Geraldo Rivera come out and say something like that on the air. If Buck Sexton was saying that on the air, I can guarantee you I wouldn't have to make the call. Rupert Murdoch doesn't have to call anybody at Fox and say, did we check sources on this? I can guarantee you that place is so buttoned up that they called immediately, if not before, and said, what are the sources? What are the sources? So the question is, why is there no follow-through on that? Either Geraldo Rivera needs to be discredited, or news agencies need to follow through on what he was reporting. You don't want to follow through on our reports, that's fine. Go ahead, prove yourself to be wrong yet again. If you don't want to follow through on ours, but somebody should follow through on Geraldo Rivera's, it's not good enough to have Geraldo Rivera say it. That's a way for a network to distance themselves. That's why ABC can have, they'll have one reporter say, oh, well, there's just one reporter. These charges are so substantial. So what Geraldo was reporting and what we have been reporting is against international law. It is against a specific treaty that we have with the Russians. We cannot run guns to Syria. We cannot run missiles to Syria. It matters. It matters to the international community. It matters to our credibility. Were we running guns, yes or no? Are we running guns, yes or no? Now, if anybody wants to say that seems unreasonable, why? We know that President Reagan did it with the Iran-Contra scandal. We know it happened then. Everybody thought it was a big deal when Ronald Reagan did it. We also know that this administration has already done it before. They ran illegal guns across our border in Fast and Furious. So what would make you think that they wouldn't be running guns to the Syrians? That's what this story is about. This whole thing was a cover-up from the very beginning because we're doing illegal things. And the president knows about it. And so does ABC. And so does CBS. And so does NBC. What was the story that NBC spiked this weekend? Oh, that the whistleblower, one of the main whistleblowers, was a Democrat. Now, why would you spike that story? You would spike that story because you're still trying to discredit the whistleblowers. You're still trying to make them seem like crazy, small government, out of control radicals. No. In fact, he voted for Hillary Clinton. So he doesn't have a political point of view that is one that the president would authorize to have the IRS look into, unless he now deems Hillary also an enemy, which I wouldn't rule out. Today, we are going to spend time on the IRS, Benghazi, and the media. We're going to show you that this most likely will not be won. We're going to show you, however, that if it's not won, if there aren't impeachment hearings, if there aren't massive firings, and if there isn't a change in the media, you already are operating under tyranny. And the president should be disregarded when he says, have no fear of tyrants.